program, everybody. I hope everybody is enjoying their morning so far. The name of this program is called It's a Conspiracy, but it ain't no theory. My name is Adrian Alice, and I am a national treasure. I am a singer-songwriter, author, model, musician. I'm the author of a 2-part book series called Lucy's Lair, Part 1 and Part 2. A book series reflecting my life as a survivor of rape culture and child sex trafficking. All right, and so on this program, I will be discussing today and reviewing my experience with the gang stalking, otherwise known as organized community harassment, remote gang stalking, cyber torture, no-touch torture, and these slow kill programs that have something to do with cancel culture. It's related to the woke mob canceling somebody and then breaking them down. So like the woke mob's motto is go woke, go broke. And so that's what I'm experiencing. This harassment campaign is in part of a much larger conspiracy that involves harassment and torture for hire and revenge for hire and an organized harassment campaign. And today I think mostly I'm going to be focusing on one of the latest traumas that was induced as a way to get me to lower my guard and to make me vulnerable and to exploit me and to abuse me and to torture me psychologically and emotionally. So we're going to be getting into that today. That's going to be our primary focus for today. So gang stalking is organized community harassment campaigns and is a part of a satanic occult ritualistic practice, and it involves things like black magic, blood magic, the satanic sacrifices made to bind somebody in the spirit, so to speak, to put them under a blood contract and to curse them. There's no other way to put it. So the things that they use are triggers after the government employs agents, CBAs, to spy, hack, phish. They take and spend a lot of time getting to know their target and what the target likes, what the target doesn't like, what triggers the target has, what the target is insecure about most, and then they hone in on that. So after a community-based agent or hacker, black hat hacker, spy, espionage, after they have taken a great deal of time to spy on the target while the target is in, their most natural state. So unbeknownst to the target, hidden cameras are being used, electronic devices are being hacked and being used as hidden cameras, phones are being wiretapped, computers are being hacked and compromised, data is being hacked and compromised, used and exploited. We all know this. This is common knowledge by this point. That's why the name of my program is It's a Conspiracy, but it ain't no theory. One of the things that I fully intend to do today is practice my right to freedom of speech and exercise my right to freedom of speech beautifully. And so before I go any further, I would just like to take a moment of silence and dedicate this moment to those no longer with us. All right, so one of the reasons why it's so important for the agents to gather so much information and to study the target while they're in the privacy of their own homes using technology to do so is because they need to know what creates trauma for the target. They need to know what triggers the target has. They need to know what insecurities the target has so that they can create trauma-based mind control. And that is a psychological operation. So this is on a military level. These community harassments are taking place at a government and above government level of authority. So this isn't, it's the government, yes, that's a branch, but it's above that. This is more along the lines of big tech corporations. So like all of the big names that you see and hear in the mainstream media that are running all of these huge big tech corporations are responsible for these electronic harassments. So this would be mind control, obviously on a psychological level, but also taking form in the flesh, in the 3D, as well as utilizing technological devices in order to manipulate somebody's mind into feeling insecure, into having triggers, in order to control their body, in order to control their behavior. And so one of the things that the CBA's community-based agents will do is when there's evidence and it can be proven, like now, they will increase the amount. And this is also too how you know the organized community harassment campaign. The gang stalking is just a slang term. And so what it technically is malicious harassment. And so it's orchestrated ahead of time. And so what they do is they will increase the amount of gang stalking, the amount of organized community harassment, and the amount of street theater. They will increase this when the results are no longer effective or when they see that it's not having the great impact on the target's life like they fully intended it to have, when they see that the target is no longer being manipulated, when they see that the target is no longer getting angry or becoming triggered or breaking down and crying emotionally, having these emotional breakdowns. So when the gang stalking isn't working and they're ineffective at whatever it is that they're trying to achieve, let's say they're trying to get a target to stop talking about a specific topic and that's not working, they will increase it. And so when they increase it, the target becomes more and more and more aware. The consciousness level rises of the target as the more aware they become. And then they're able to have more evidence to prove. But in a way, it's very much so a way to try to come back and cover up and to try to blend it in with what's already going on to make it look like there's all this foot traffic. There's not a lot of foot traffic around here. There's not. Okay, but when you can prove that you're being harassed, and then you make YouTube videos and you go on Facebook and you have all this evidence and you've reported it to the police and you can see that this is taking place on a government and a military and even higher levels of authority, then the only way that they try to conceal it is by covering it up and making it look like it's all just happening coincidentally, and they do this by using plausible deniability, and we're going to get into this quite a bit here on this program. So stay tuned for that. And then also too, what we can do going forward as women, this is affecting our lives a lot differently than it would if we were men. Being exploited as a man is one thing. Being abused as a man is one thing. But this type of occult aggression and torture is for women another thing, and it's not even a psychological operation. For me personally, I think it's quite hysterical on the inside when somebody is weak enough to show their ass and they need a gang of people to do that, and they express their hate playing mind games and trying to manipulate their targets and into becoming emotionally upset and inducing a trauma. So now, while they're all on a psychological level, bear in mind, I've already risen above this in the spirit. So while they're all on this extremely low frequency, expressing their hate towards their target, the target is on another level spiritually. A level that a demonic entity or a low vibrational entity can only dream of achieving. It's a fantasy. To them, it's a delusion. They're never going to have what it takes on a spiritual level to be the person that they're targeting. And so many people, when you try to come out and when you try to say, well, when I've tried to say this or when I've researched this online, they say, well, one of the first things people say, well, why is it that it's you? Why you? Why you? You're not famous. Well, why would a famous person have gang stalkers? First of all, they have enough money to protect themselves and to hire private security, right? And it is these famous people's lapdogs that is doing the gang stalking and the organized community harassments, the torture for hire, the revenge for hire. All of this is being paid for by really, really well-established people. So the psychological component to it is interesting because it takes my energy and my power and my reaction in order for the mind control to work in the first place. If I don't play my hand, the table and the game ceases to exist. All right, so before I go any further and before I possibly forget, I just wanted to state the date and the time. So one more time, or just in case I've already forgotten, January 18th, Wednesday, 2023, we got 9:27 on the clock here. All right, I just wanted to timestamp that. So, and I started recording this a lot earlier than it is right now. I've just had to stop because there was leaf blowers outside, and then my dog started barking, and so there were a few issues this morning, not gonna lie. But I woke up feeling like the badass that I am, of course, per usual. And of course, proving the gang stalkers and the haters wrong by rising above what they just put me through this week. So, and we're gonna get to it. I can't wait because it's such a juicy one for the ladies out there. So for the gang stalking and the psychological operation for women, it's a lot different. And so for men, it's kind of easy because they use sex. And not to be like discriminatory or anything like that, but this is my program and I can talk about what I want on my program because it's just a program. It's not a cult. So please don't tell me how to be on my program, okay? Or what to say. If I want to say whatever I want to say about whatever I want to say, I've earned my right to say it. It's my freedom of expression to speak whatever I want to speak into existence and to manifest that. So if you don't like it, simply don't watch. It's that simple. So, but the gang stalking and the trauma-based mind control, okay? This is one of the words that I really need people to hone in on today because we're going to talk about it. Trauma-based mind control for men is very different than it is for women. For men, it's easy. It's money, sex, drugs, whatever, you know? They'll send hot chicks out, and we're going to talk about this a lot today. So to try to get your husband to cheat, to leave you, to break up the family. Okay, so that's how they control people. But with men, it's a lot easier, and so they can just send somebody out with whatever that man likes. If he likes Jen Selter's ass, or if he's into ass implants, then they'll send somebody out with fake ass and whatever, and then he'll get looked at like he's cheating, and then it'll start a trauma that they then go in on. Okay? And so then whatever that trauma was, they will mirror the color of the pants that person that they sent out, that honey trapped woman that they sent out. And now you'll start seeing all these other people wearing the same color. So that's kind of like the color the color desensitizing, and that aspect of this psychological operation that is done. So with men, it's sex, it's money, it's all these other things, kind of easy, porn, stuff like that. That's how they're corrupting them. Okay, that's how they are corrupting and controlling their mind's eye. And now, this is one of the easiest things to prove, because just like with celebrities, these men are being manipulated into thinking that, these porn stars matter more than their wives at home, or than their wives and their families, or than their wives and their children's and their grandchildren. They're leaving everything that they've come to know because of a delusion or because of a fantasy, and because they've become corrupt over time. They rather watch porn at home alone with no kids and no family, because that's how highly narcissistic most of these men are, than be involved with their wife, then listen to their wife, or whatever. So with men it's a lot different, and with women it's kind of the opposite. So this week was a really interesting week for me as a woman. I went into the doctor to have an operation consultation for butt injections and possibly implants. This is something that I had planned on doing for, I don't know, probably 2 or 3 years now. And it's a really, really good way for me to describe how the trauma-based mind control is working and how it's affecting my life, and to just kind of keep my head above the water by, reviewing my experience with this as a woman. And so it is my opinion that the electronic devices and the phishing attacks and the social engineering attacks and the MK Ultra, the hypnosis, all of this negative energy and this extremely low frequency is responsible for mental health, like things are diagnoses such as anxiety, PTSD, depression. All of these things are, in my opinion, they are coming from the electronic harassments and the extremely low frequencies that have been brought upon by the technological devices using radio frequencies. More or less, an extremely low frequency is fear, hate. These are things, and it's the same thing. Hate is fear, and fear is hate. So there is no fear and there is no hate in my heart. I'm not fear-based, I'm faith-based. So there's no room for that in my heart or in my spirit. I might be able to occupy a little tiny portion of my mind to that, only to expose corruption, and that's it. And I have been exposing corruption since the very first words ever out of my mouth. Okay, so basically the idea behind trauma-based mind control is to essentially induce a trauma and or a trigger by manipulating a person into feeling vulnerable about themselves or about the environment around them. Alright, so unfortunately today is a really, really busy day outside. It's very hectic, and also too it's causing my dog to go ballistic. So please excuse the background noise. Thank you so much. We're going to be moving forward. So, when you have political rivals that seek to silence your voice, they wish to have my voice. And so, since they can't possess my voice, they do everything in their power to try to gain control over that, which is understandable to a certain degree. It's understandable, but when you have political rivals to the extremism that I've been dealing with in the last 3 to 4 years, it's their envy and their hate and their disdain and their racism is so, and their sexism is so, and their corruption is just so incredibly deep-seated. I have never been treated so poorly. And only true racism and sexism will be the one with the no-touch torture. So that's like, they hate you so much that they won't even touch you with a 10-foot pole, because that's how disgusting you are to them. And so when you have corruption scandals this deep, it implies a much bigger issue. That issue is something I take great pride and great joy in discussing on my program. I started this program shortly after Jennifer's death. I started this program actually on my Snapchat. And a lot of people probably wonder, how did I get so many points on my Snapchat? You know, a lot of people get these points on their Snapchat for other reasons, but that's not the case for me personally. And so I got the points on my Snapchat because I was making videos like this. Okay, and this is kind of how I warmed up and or practiced and or trained for my videos on YouTube that I'm doing now currently. So it is just really interesting, because you know that when your heart is pulling you in a specific direction, you will do things to prepare yourself for that, in advance, of course. Hello? And so, as I was saying, the basic idea behind trauma-based mind control is to essentially induce trauma and triggers by manipulating a person into feeling vulnerable, either about themselves or about their environment around them. So, one of the most common ways this is being done in our modern times and in today's world, in this new age, is by social engineering attacks. Also, gang stalking has a lot to do with street theater. There's a lot of street theater that's involved in the trauma-based mind control. And the street theater can be extreme, and it also can be super simple. So don't ever discredit any little thing, because that's very much a part of the plausible deniability. And they want you to be able to passively deny that. Any responsibility behind it. All right. The denial in and of itself is also, in my opinion, a primary source for the mental health crisis and mental health diagnosis, such as like anxiety, bipolar personality, multiple personality disorders, and psychopathy, and many other things. So using social engineering attacks, the government placates to this plausible deniability when they or it is running a psychological operation. And so the plausible deniability is to discourage anyone from taking any responsibility. And then in turn, our government or anyone working in place of the government will need a place to store the negative component or the negative aspect or the negative emotions harvested. And so because it needs a place to put that, it'll always seek out a source. It will never take any responsibility, and that's why it constantly needs a scapegoat, and it is always looking to villainize a victim in the first place, so as to compartmentalize the responsibility for their catastrophic failure and their flawed system. In order to do that, the government creates a systematic failure that targets scapegoats and then practices this ritualistic scapegoating process similarly to the story of Jesus. Now, side note, Jesus did not die for my sins because I am going to die for my own sins. But before I do die for my own sins, I'm going to be tortured psychologically and emotionally, okay? So I don't want to hear that. I'm tired of hearing that. What people are actually placating to is a ritual of sacrifice and nothing else. So that what you're actually worshiping is a satanic ritual and nothing else. So my whole entire life, I've always wondered why people behave this way. And as I got older into my 20s, I realized at some point that the reason why people behave this way, the reason why men cheat, the reason why people are behaving this way is because they are insecure. And that is still the same to this day. Nothing has changed. And that is also a huge reason why plastic surgeons actually are so successful. So in a lot of ways, what happened to me this week was a compliment to my badassery. And I take it, and I hope that this organization knows that I take it as a compliment. I am understanding and I am aware that I have been able and I have managed to get further on my failures than most people have on their success. A lot of people, at their best, a successful person can change somebody else's life. But how many lives can they change? Or how many lives change does it take to change the world? And at best, the most successful person I've ever known may have the power within themselves to change somebody's life. At best. But they don't have the power to change the world. And that's what I mean when I say I'm understanding and I am aware that I have been able and I have successfully gotten further on my failures than most people have on their success. And so that's why where the government sees vulnerability, I see strength. Where the government sees vulnerability to exploit, I see the strength to overcome. And I never let a trauma go to waste. So there is no such thing as making a mistake or having an accident or having failure. And if they certainly don't let any of my failures go to waste or any of my traumas go to waste, why should I? Right? And so I also use that as an opportunity. So where they see weakness, I see strength. Where they see doubt and discouragement, I see words strong enough to change the world. Okay? I see wings strong enough to carry the weight of the world upon them, metaphorically. I am a witch practitioner, a white magic witch practitioner. So just for the record, I wanted to state that I am a white witch practitioner. I do not practice blood sacrifices. I do not practice blood magic. I do not worship or pray to the devil. I don't worship or pray to the devil in my actions, in my words, in my heart, in my mind, in my spirit, in my soul, or in my flesh. Okay, despite what many MK Ultra victims may believe or have chosen to believe, that's not true. It's just not true. So that is a rumor that is absolutely false, and I pray to God and to the Son of God, the only Son of God, which is Jesus. So, which I believe every single person possesses the spirit of Jesus, and that is why we are attacked the way that we are, and that is the spiritual warfare component to this program that I often discuss. So, as a white witch practitioner, I want to go ahead and reverse a curse on today's program. And so the curse that I am specifically going to be reversing is the spiritually suffocating curse that has been placed upon Libra. Libra, Gemini, and Aquarius. Okay? I have a curse. White magic practice for you, and so we're going to be practicing that and exercising that practice today on today's program. So spiritually suffocating, we're reversing the curse of spiritually suffocating, and we're sending this curse back to the sender. So return to sender. Okay, so spiritually suffocating, the spiritual symbolism behind spiritually suffocating and vocally manifesting the return to sender and the reverse curse on today's program. So let's get it. In life, so many people are slowly asphyxiating. This spiritual suffocating manifests itself in many different responses. Feeling overwhelmed, lonely, guilty, unimportant, ashamed, unsafe, worthless, stupid, left out, incompetent, lost in life, never catching up on tasks, craving a drink, needing coffee to get started, seeing the glass half empty, never getting a break, feeling unattractive, eating to soothe, being passed over, picked last, picked on. Some people flat out hopeless, helpless, and even suicidal, which is a word I don't really like to use. Why? Why do people feel this way? According to this curse, because they are not spiritually, quote, breathing. Dreaming about being choked is mostly related to emotions, feeling of inability to make your own decisions, to express yourself, and find a solution for the burning issues in your life. So in my case, it would be rising above oppression, the spirit of oppression. Okay, so to continue, the dream of choking someone else is related to lack of interest or animosity towards that particular person, or a sign of not understanding the principle of this individual. So basically, not understanding how a woman would want to rise above rape culture, even though she wrote and is the author of 2 books, a 2-book series. So how is it that you don't understand if I've already spoken into existence and I live it quite literally every day? So anyways, the dream of being choked carries a powerful symbolic meaning, but we interpreted only a piece of it. I guess that must be because we're so stupid. Sorry. The dream of being choked is often related to the feeling that something is pressing on us, or we do not have the strength to resist the idea that may be not so well for us. In both cases, the feeling this dream leaves is the same. If you are watching someone get strangled, it could be a warning about a physical or spiritual attack. It's almost every day it happens. To dream of being choked represents emotional suffocation. Feeling unable to express yourself at all or make your own decisions. Dreams about suffocation can mean that you are simply too busy. Similar to dreams about drowning. Dreams about suffocating can symbolize that your current hectic lifestyle will quite simply be the death of you. If you dreamed that you were strangled to death, the dream book predicts a serious emotional shock. This plot means that you have decided to break the current love affair, marriage, or business relationship. The same plot hints at the desire to subordinate someone, to make not just listen, but also perceive. Dream Bible, dream interpretation of suffocating. To dream of being suffocated represents feelings of being smothered or oppressed by a person or situation. Something or someone is holding you back. You may feel unable to express yourself, speak your mind, or are experiencing a lot of stress and tension. Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you today not to ask for anything, but to simply say thank you for all that I have and that I am becoming. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. Return to sender. All right, so what a beautiful white magic ritual we just went over and we just experienced on my program for the very first time ever. And I can say right now, I feel so much better already. And as you can see in the picture that is portrayed on the screen here, we have Belle, who is a victim of basically Stockholm Syndrome, and she's a prisoner, and so she can only view her father through this magic mirror that is portrayed using a form of art, an expression form of art, in this Disney movie that you see on the screen here. And it is actually kind of sad because she has to take her father's place because she's the young one, and she's the one that is essentially the main source, the main ingredient, so to speak. And you can see also here how we have a portrayed version of this art expressed through her dreams being completely shattered. She'll never be able to see her family again. She has been completely isolated, successfully segregated from her family, the only family she knew. And Belle is honestly, too, the way you see the woman in Twilight portrayed. Her name is Bella. So clearly there's a beautiful component to female spirituality and divine feminism that is lacking somewhere. And it's really interesting to see how Hollywood ritualizes the vanity of women, and the beauty standards increase over time with the MK Ultra and the social engineering attacks, as we all have come to know very well, which is why we seek to self-soothe so much, because we shouldn't have to feel peer pressured by society to fit or break a specific mold. And there are not enough efforts being made to put forth the initiative that it takes to start a greater vision, a greater plan, a greater goal. And I already knew in the depth of my soul, in the depth of my heart, my higher and highest self had already kind of contemplated the worst case scenario. And we're going to go over that right now, which, by the way, I couldn't fully prepare for, because one never fully, I can't fully see the future, right? So while I know what's going on and I'm fully aware, and I put into motion the action to set forth the plan in which will expose this corruption, I never fully prepare and can't fully prepare or understand or know what is about to come as a result. So there's no game plan. It's just kind of like go with it from that point on. And then when whatever happens, there is a game plan. So there's no predicting what they're going to do, right? And usually they show their ass in one way, shape, or form, or the lack thereof. And then, no pun intended, and then there's no game plan for them. There's no, you can't foresee what anybody else is going to say, do, and behave, and how they're going to act, and how insecure they may feel when you arrive, okay? It is really just based upon, each case is different, and it is based upon energy and energy magic, that which I practice, and I am able to alchemize so effortlessly and beautifully. So there's no foreseeing what the enemy is going to say, do, or how they're going to spiritually, psychologically, and emotionally attack and exploit you, and or your vulnerabilities as a human and as a woman. There's no way to foresee that. However, there is a game plan in action that you are to take in order to diffuse that, which I can go over and I will get to, and I will explain the game plan. I will let you guys know what it is that I've been doing, that has been working for me, and it has been working very, 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 very well. Actually, I'm not gonna lie, I've had the same trauma per usual that I've been desensitized to since I was about 13, maybe younger. I've had the same trauma, but I've been able to approach it and manage it in such a greater way that I'm actually able to be even more proud of than I would be if I had what I thought I was manipulated into believing I wanted in the first place. So, my New Year's resolution, I've already accomplished, and that was simply to have the #1 channel dedicated to targeted individuals and dedicated to TI resources, exposing the hidden enemy, and with this video, I've already accomplished that. And January is not even over. So I hope that at the very least that may encourage some of you guys to start your own and to just get out there and start doing the boots on ground that it takes. You know, if I'm getting protested against because I step outside for a smoke, listen, that's discrimination. And I have boots on the ground, and that's more than a lot of agents can say. I have my heart and my soul and my mind and my body right. It's all in alignment and it's all in the right place. And it's all for a reason. It's not for nothing. And it will not continue to get silenced because it has not. The more they do to try to silence me, the further up the ladder I get at exposing them and the corruption that seeks to exploit, extort, and oppress me. And so obviously there are death cults, there are rape cults, there are women-hating cults. There's all kinds of cults. And what I'm dealing with is something on a multi-demographical level. It's really hard not to let my bird have its way when I'm talking and dealing with demons that seek to possess me, that want the voice that I have, because they don't even know how to speak properly. They can't sing. They have to dance or rap or do something else to overcompensate for the fact that they're lacking. Using tech devices, the harassers are able to interact and attack a target remotely anytime. Alright, so I'm going to be going over a little bit about cancel culture. So, cancel culture is kind of like the woke mob. And this is in part of censorship. So, and also it's also related to gang stalking. So, and this all comes down to like the mayor and, that's how deep, this is what it comes down to. And so we're going to get to some of the cancel culture, the way that cancel culture targets people. So cancel culture targets are being repressed and censored through this and other technological and communicational means. Their deaths or incarcerations in psychiatric institutions hastened through record falsifications, character assassinations, psychological stressors, in addition to the extreme damages caused by continuous low-level, non-ionizing radiation applied to the various organs in their bodies and, most importantly, minds. So yeah. Thought police also too. It's all related. So that's why in the beginning of my program you see a big tree and it has all these eyes on it, because that's basically the symbol for this mob, and how many branches and how many levels of and how deep it is. So anyway, so cancel culture uses a technique called spear phishing to continuously collect data from electronic devices, secrets, legal, and medical information, then leaks the private intellectual property through the mainstream media to exploit, abuse, humiliate, shame, ridicule, blackmail, extort. And this is also known as electronic harassment. Everybody with a device is a target. So it's important to know that these weapons are not by any means non-lethal, but rather supremely lethal, as many have subsequently lost their lives from their applications. These sorts of attacks and fatal effects, covert or not, are supposedly criminal in Washington and should be nationwide. Cancel culture, this targeting and harassment is local and has come to American targeted activists. Good constitutionally bound citizens and law-abiding residents in Seattle and suburbs and communities are currently being tortured 24/7 by naval and maritime-directed energy weapons and by a related CIA psychological operation protocol gang
organized group stalking, which translates to modern day slavery, human trafficking, or like a third world country, basically. This is what it's becoming with each attack. And so on October 31st, 2019, Slave to the Needle, the tattoo shop that I went to have my tattoos done, they were broken into, and so they were mobbed by cancel culture. So on Halloween 2019, so that's when this ritual began. So for reasons that are truth-based, my supporters and I have become targets and involuntary, uninformed, non-consensual human subjects in these horrific occult aggressions, satanic rituals, and slow kill torture programs. This kind of electromagnetic or electronic harassment, coupled with non-consensual human experimentation sanctioned by the military, has been going on for at least 2 to 3 years, if not more, and has been experienced by both social justice workers, usually activists and whistleblowers, and many other non-activist citizens, many of whose stories are documented online as politically victimized individuals. Now, I'm not a politician, I'm an artist. So, I'm not making propaganda, I'm making art. And so it's really interesting because the greatest artists are often misunderstood, and so this isn't surprising or shocking at all. Cancel culture. This illegal covert harassment is government funded and supported. Department of Homeland Security fusion centers and citizen watch groups are involved in recruiting neighbors, so basically like flying monkeys or lapdogs, and coworkers to harass politically victimized individuals. Illegal funding for weapons testing, brain control, and behavior control or modification comes from the Department of Defense and possibly the National Institutes of Health and other government illegally funded operations. So, like FEMA, okay, so the reason why it's important and the reason why they put people like myself on lists like this is because they get grants, they get loans and grant money from FEMA and other government-funded departments. So they need a target to be on the list for as long as they can possibly keep them on there. And so this is why they don't really like to kill the target either, because the more targets that are on the list, the more money they make, and the more resources there are for them to continue to operate illegally. But this is a little bit deeper than that too, and we're going to go ahead and get into it. So the CIA, FBI, and NSA, with some local and state police, firefighters, emergency personnel, and other groups in this fusion, are engaged in such covert surveillance and harassment in home and other places. Video and audio, foot, vehicular, and aerial are also engaged in PSYOP activities, including organized stalking and human trafficking. So it's really interesting because once you get to that level, it's basically like the Truman Show. And if you know anything about gang stalking and censorship and organized community harassment campaigns, if you know what I'm talking about, then you know exactly how insane this is. And the levels that they'll go to harass you or me or I, and it has to do with trauma-based mind control. And the way that they're doing this is through the device. And so also with the dreaming manipulation, when they download an artificial dream package, it's also to induce trauma and shock, to be able to induce a trauma-based mind control, which is the goal when somebody becomes, when when somebody is murdered, or when somebody dies in a hit and run car accident, like this is the case for in this story, in this situation, and that's basically trauma-based mind control. So that's to prevent somebody from basically ever leaving their house ever again. And so these are terrorists, and murder is illegal, and everybody harassing me is complicit in murder. Everybody believing anything mainstream is complicit in murder, and is also racist. The woman who died was Samoan American. So a few tips that I had for some of the ladies, and even some of the men, if there are any, if there happens to be, by any chance, any men or males listening to the program. One of the things that really helped me, I stopped getting sick. I used to get sick all the time when my device was being used to remote surveil by so many different hackers and so many different people. And we're working up into that. Like, we're gonna eventually get to exactly how they do this towards a little bit later on, towards the later half of this program today. But I actually had to cut this program up into 2 parts because I knew it was going to be a longer program, because there was a lot more that I had to go over for this one. But instead of breaking it into like part 1, part 2, part 3, I just broke it up into 2 days, and I put it all on this recording here. So it may take me a little bit longer to get it all the way recorded and finished and edited and then uploaded. But there's a lot of information. There's a lot more information in this video. And the reason for that is so that I can go over how this is happening, okay? And a few things that we can do going forward as women. So I decided, when my device was hacked and when I was alerted that the government was spying on me and that police were surveilling me electronically, that not all my neighbors, but a good 2 to 3, possibly 4 of my neighbors are all exfiltrating my data and using that to blackmail me. When I found that out, I'm going to say that was probably one of the most terrifying moments of my entire life. And then you have to wonder, where do the ideas behind movies like Nightmare on Elm Street come from? And it's really simple. They come from programs like this. Torture programs like this, with the dream manipulation and the dream altering and the attacks in a lot of ways by the community-based agents. It really reminds me of the movie Chainsaw Massacre. You know, how the whole town is kind of in on it. And when it's at a military and a government level, it definitely really feels like that. And even if it's on a little bit of a lower level, if somebody just hired like black hat hackers to exploit you and to blackmail me, then even then, they all operate similarly. So it still feels like, because they're able to kind of like manipulate the situation into looking like there's more people involved, but it's really not. And I just want the targets to know that the things that you're feeling, like the fear and stuff like that, it's all normal. It's a normal reaction. Just try to breathe and keep breathing. Don't stop. Keep doing whatever it is that you're doing. They're certainly not going to stop their harassment campaign. And so, keep your safety intact. Keep whatever goals you're working on, keep that in your full front and keep trying to focus on that. And the reason why I'm focusing on this so much is because I'm forced to do this right now in this moment in my life. I can't get a job. I can't go to the doctor for plastic surgery because I will be harassed and publicly shamed like I just recently was. And it is a nightmare. It's absolutely horrifying to be. It's like, imagine going to school and then being stripped and beat in front of the entire school and then watching them all laugh at you. That's kind of how it feels. Like, imagine going to school as a child, and the most embarrassing thing would probably be like, I don't know, showing up and your pants accidentally rip off or something. So imagine going to school in front of the whole congregation of people, and then like people just attacking you and stripping you naked, stripping you bare, and then basically beating you, like publicly shaming you in front of everybody, and then the whole congregation pointing their fingers and laughing because while you're there naked, you know, being tortured, crying and suffering, because that's what it is. But it's being done remotely. And so you have to know that these people keep their organizations anonymous by doing this remotely too. So this is actually to cover their asses as well, because, you know, once you see somebody's face and once you see who your harassers are, the world isn't a very big place. Okay? At least Seattle's not that big, and everywhere else, Seattle's probably one of the biggest around here, so everywhere else is just an even smaller branch of that. So if I've seen your face, chances are, you know, I'll see you around. And so, like, there's really nowhere for them to hide. And so this is kind of how these chicken shit a-holes are hiding. They're using technology to harass these people. And then to make it turn around, of course, this is what gaslighting is. This is what narc abuse is. They'll hit you, they'll target you, they'll attack you in private, and then you react in public. And then people turn around and look at you, and then they think, oh my God, that person is crazy. But actually the reaction that person is having, and if you're a victim of gang stalking as well, your reactions are completely healthy. Your reactions are completely normal. There's nothing wrong with being afraid and then acting out in a hateful way, because that's what fear does. That's a reaction. That's a healthy reaction to being targeted, to being abused, to being exploited, to being tortured on a federal level. There's nothing you can say and do that would be abusive or retaliative, because it's normal and it's healthy. I don't know a single person who's doing this to me that would enjoy this being done to them. I mean, how would they behave, right? If they were being abused and exploited to this level, the way that they have done to my family and I. It's excruciatingly painful, emotionally and psychologically. And it hurts me knowing that I can't do anything to bring somebody back from the dead. So this is my way of trying to give back in another way, in the only other way that I can. So, all right, so a few tips. I feel like taping up the device front and back is a really good tip. If you can, tape up your mic too. Now, I use my device way too much, so that's not something that I can do. And so what they do is they will, when they hack, and the reason why I say tape up your mic is because when they hack, and I'm going to try to keep a fair amount of transparency, so that way if I say something outrageous, just know it's for the purpose of being transparent and being honest and keeping it real. So tape up the device front and back. If you can, tape up your mic. One of the things they like to do, it's actually really funny, kind of gross and creepy joke, but it's called fart warfare, and it's where they will take audio of you farting, like actually farting, because they've hacked you and they listen. That's literally all they live for. And so they sit around waiting for the target to fart. Okay, now this is gonna sound so retarded, but that's how stupid these things are. Okay, they sit around waiting for the target to fart, and then they record that, and then they'll put that like in Russell Brand's podcast. That's how they publicly shame and also prime the general public simultaneously. Or they'll take clips of the fart noises and they'll put it in other movies. And this is just kind of like their way of saying, you ain't shit. You're never gonna be shit, right? Which is just a projection of how they view themselves. That's probably their deepest insecurity, is fearing a failure. They are afraid of becoming nothing or losing it all, or they're secretly insecure and don't think highly about themselves. I'm saying possibly. So it wouldn't really matter, but that is one of the things that they're doing. Another one of the things that they're doing once the device has been hacked and once the target has been exploited is they're testing. They're testing for sure, but also too they'll take like I said, video footage of the target without. They want to see the target in its most vulnerable state, so they want to see it without any makeup, like a slave. They strip it of its power entirely, doing this 110% remotely. And so they view it while it's nude, whatever, while it doesn't have any makeup on, while it's in the shower. As long as the device is anywhere near, it could hear and it could see, so long as the lens isn't covered. And then what they'll do is they'll take that footage of the target that doesn't have any makeup and filter on or whatever, and then they will CGI doctor it up, and now you have my face is Baby Yoda after CGI, of course. And so that's that's true. That's actually true. That was one of the ways hackers exploited me. And so yeah, that's actually true. My face is Baby Yoda without makeup and obviously with CGI applied. So it's really interesting because this is really petty, and you would think that people who've made it really big in life would be happier with their success, and this right here proves otherwise. And so anyways, we need to try to avoid using the cell phones and the devices for any criminality, or using the device for shooting any inappropriate photos. I feel like a bikini photo might be okay, but even that, at this point, it's just kind of like, why give your power away, you know? And so the reason why these women aren't able to find husbands like myself, the reason why they're not progressing is because of this right here. And then when people say, well, why you? And it's because there are slow kill torture programs and revenge for hire programs that are being bestowed upon and inflicted upon targets, politically victimized targets, and their families, even though their families didn't do anything. So another one of the tips that I have here is don't watch porn, don't go on the porn sites. If you're on the porn sites, they're on the other side of the device watching you while you're watching that, and then they're recording that metadata. Even though you're not recording you, they're recording you. And then they are then leaking that and selling that on black markets. So let that porn addiction be for the guys, okay, ladies? We're better than that. Rise above it. So, additionally, I have on here, adopt the understanding that we are being viewed by military, the government, and other foreign entities, and other hackers, and other criminals. So one of the things that they also do when they've exploited somebody, a woman, to the degree that they have exploited me, is that they'll take the surveillance photos and their surveillance videos, and then they'll create like a surveillance photo or surveillance video room, and then they'll have criminals and other people go into this room, whether it be online, like maybe they sent a file of all these surveillance photos and videos to somebody, or in the flesh, like let's say they actually printed all of this out, and then they set up all of these photos in a room, literally, and so it'll be covered and decked out with nothing but surveillance photos of the target, and then criminals will go in there and they'll be able to masturbate to that. All of this is being done while the target is completely unaware. So that means you think it's not you right now because your cell phone device hasn't alerted you that you're being viewed by hackers. But make no mistake, it is being done. It's being done to everybody. And so one of the reasons why you see women like myself having a hard time progressing, not being able to get married, not being able to, settle down or to get the gigs or to whatever, is because of the cancel culture and the woke mobbings. And so they alienate this target from their families and from their friends. And then if they make any new friends, they sabotage that. They're great at it. They're experts at this. And they do that by character assassinations. And they do this easily with me by saying I'm racist. No proof whatsoever. And so once you're a target, once you've been targeted, everybody that supports you is also a suspect. So basically every single person that I'm friends with is also a Nazi, is also white supremacy. And everybody, all of my friends and all of my family, even though they're not white, all of my friends and some of my family, even though they're not white, they're all considered racist too, even though they're not white. And so this is why when I went to the doctor to have my operation consultation, I was informed by doctor that there was nothing he can do for me because he's also afraid. It's one of those things. I went in there, I think a year or two ago, and things were fine then, no problem. And I wanted to catch up on some of my personal goals before going back to the doctor for the operation. COVID kind of, with all of the stuff that I've been dealing with ever since the pandemic, which was just the deep state, the shadow government conspiring against me. The whole entire pandemic was just my shingles. I was diagnosed with shingles, by the way, in January 2020. And so this is how they leak the information, and then, of course, they assassinate this person's character by leaking their medical information, which, at this point, it wouldn't matter. Like, anything that I'm saying is only helping me. I'm taking my power back by speaking my truth. So, and that is a social engineering attack. Exploiting somebody's medical records to the public in the media like that. And then doing it by saying you're doing it because this person was canceled, and the reason why they're canceled is because they're racist, is literally the excuse why you're canceling me, because you're racist and sexist, or whoever's responsible for this campaign, which is the Democrats. So now somebody said somewhere, sometime, I heard this somewhere through the grapevines at some point, that this could be an initiation process, but I'm not interested in being a part of your sex cult, all right? So with all due respect, fuck off and stop trying to pimp me, because you're not pimping. You're not pimping. So, and then of course you need me for that in order to do that in the first place. So doctor was unable to help me when I went into the clinic to try to get my operation done, and he said that there wouldn't be anybody that he could even refer me to because nobody's allowed to help me. Like, like I said, it's the mayor. Okay, they swore this mayor into the office specifically so that they can run this psychological operation, this slow kill torture program. So really interesting, really interesting, because I have a geisha tattoo, supposedly that's also racist. It's like, it wouldn't really matter, because once you hit a level of success that I've hit and you've changed the world successfully, And you've gotten further on your failures than most people get on their successes, which is why they target Americans like this in the first place, because they could never. They don't have what it takes. But like, once it gets to that point, there's nothing a target can do or say, right? Everything they do is wrong, 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 wrong. And that's like the epitome of discrimination. And yeah, America absolutely has a problem. That problem is human trafficking, human sex trafficking, and rape culture. Like I've already stated in my previous videos, that's the only problem America has. And even if America was racist, I single-handedly ended racism indefinitely. So, hoorah, right? So, yeah, no, there's no way that I can get any more, basically, services from the world or just anywhere. I even feel like they don't want to bitch on welfare. Like the research I've done says basically the only thing you can do is leave the country, which isn't gonna happen. So I might move. I'm not gonna say, oh, I'll never move. I may eventually look into moving. I may eventually look into relocating, but you know, my conspirators owe me, I think it's like $20 million for each act of terrorism. And I mean, I've been terrorized every single day for the last 4 years. So is that $20 million a day for the last 4 years is what they owe me in restitutions? Yeah, it's really funny because whenever you hear the ridicule, the person that they're targeting is the one that people actually need to be listening to, because that's the only one telling the truth. And as a human being, as a civilian, we're all, in their eyes, criminals. And that is exactly how they set us up. Once you believe you're a criminal, then you'll start behaving like a criminal. And that's what a psychological operation is. So, a part of the PSYOP is implanting an etheric or an energetic implant, and basically that implant is just an extremely low frequency. So like fear, racism, hate, all of this is basically an energetic implant. And so what is an etheric implant? Do you have thought patterns, limiting beliefs, or behaviors that are hard to modify or overcome? In the spiritual lingo, the word etheric refers to something energetic, thus intangible in nature. We could not call it an object in the 3D sense of how we would conceive it, but it does consist in a foreign object found within our energy bodies. Those implants act as a portal/feeding tube, allowing involutive, I cannot say this word, you guys, I'm so sorry, involutive entities to amplify or recycle negative or compulsory thoughts or emotions in order to convert them to lower vibrational energy in order to, quote, feed on them. So basically the fear is like demon food. Hence, it can have a significant limiting impact on one's overall development and well-being, whether it be mental, emotional, or even physical. Those implants have long existed and used to fly under the radar most healers and energy practitioners. So I consider myself an energy practitioner for sure, because I practice white magic. And I'm able to alchemize negative energy. Like I said, I never let a trauma go to waste. So so these implants have long existed and used to fly under the radar of most healers and energy practitioners. What changed then? The vibrational level of the earth, particularly since 2020, where the energies have risen exponentially ever since, and so have energy practitioners' capacities. I'm kind of tired today, so please excuse my slow reading. And although it is true that they are dwindling out, the entities behind those implants do try to resist. This can produce stronger mental, emotional, or physical symptoms than before, but in the process, making it easier to be detected and removed. Regardless, those entities and their implants are losing ground with each passing day. And so that is good news. How and why? When we go through hardships and traumas, it can create fears in us. Those fears create breaches in our chakras. This may translate to the unconscious fears in comprehensions, so like confusion, false beliefs, so manipulation, coping mechanisms, denial, etc. Still, depending on the depth of those imprints, emotional reactions, these breaches can heal over time. The fact that our wounds become unconscious is also a natural psychological process, given the mind's job is to avoid us pain and suffering by making us oblivious to the source of our pain. Though what the implant does is to amplify this phenomenon by keeping that breach opened and maintaining the wounds even more unconscious, this then perpetuates and amplifies the negative emotions that arise in order to be siphoned in energy form. So this is like energy harvesting. A loophole in the law of free will. Strong emotional reactions can modify our beliefs and behaviors, and how we choose to react to something remains a matter of personal choice. Unconscious, perhaps, but still choices that arise from our free will. That means that we are the ones creating those breaches in the first place. Now, sounds like a gaslight to me, but bear with me. And we do agree to experience the negative impact that come with them. So even though those implants are foreign objects, they do not go against the universal law of free will. They just amplify what has already been created. An inconvenient loophole, to say the least. So I don't necessarily agree with that. By whom or what? But who would want to, quote, drain us this way? The Democrats? Even though this kind of interference may be caused by souls who have passed, so basically like ghosts. So these are like ghosts trying to possess and soulscape people, apparently. But it's not that. It's a form of trauma-based mind control. That's not what I mean here, see? I'm referring to beings that are motivated by domination, existing in other lower planes of existence, that can only strive by feeding off other life forms. They feed off fear, anger, sadness, discouragement, self-pity, etc. And so I really encourage people to do Rakai healing to clear any residual energies from past connections or past etheric implants negatively impacting the mind's eye. And clearing highly charged traumatic energetic imprints. That's what it is. This is a clearing highly charged traumatic energetic imprints. So what you want to do is some Rakai healing for the mind control and for the dream altering and for the trauma-based mind control, because these operations are definitely happening, and they're not just happening to me. All right, so one of the things that I also wanted to cover on today's program was the social engineering and how it's related to the trauma-based mind control. And so I wanted to just share a little bit of my experience that happened at the doctor. So like I was saying, I went to the doctor this week to have a consultation for an augmentation and to possibly get butt implants. And I basically was mortified at the doctor. I mean, it doesn't get any more embarrassing than that. And I was called to the back, And then I was asked to obviously take my clothes off and put a gown on. They took my photos, and then before they took my photos, they asked if somebody could be in the room with them. So I thought that was really interesting, because I was like, this is just how they amplify the trauma, and then the shaming mechanisms as well. So I said no. The lady left. And then I was asked to go from one room to another room. So I don't know if this was on an accident or if this was on purpose. I honestly don't know. It could be for the purpose of gang stalking, and it could also not be. So either way, I'm just saying it's possible. And then so I was asked to go get up and walk in my gown to another room. And then that's where I sat down with the doctor, and then the doctor told me basically what I already reviewed, and I'll just review it one more time. There was basically nothing he could do for me, because I don't store enough fat on my body to do a BBL, which is understandable. And then also too said that there was nothing he could do in terms of referring me to anybody, because he didn't know of anybody around here that would be able to help me, because like I said, I'm on this government watch list. So, and I'm pretty sure that's mostly what it has to do with. Now, if this is covertly being done, and that's what I suspect, this could just be to cover his own tracks and to try not to get involved with, something that may be not so beneficial for him in the long run. And then he had asked me if when he was all the way done with his whole spiel about there was nothing he can do, the whole 9 yards, just super, super Debbie Downer type of energy, right? He looked at me like if he was, like, his eyes were tearing up, and so I replied, and I was like, are you crying? Are you about to start crying? And I'll never forget this, because I genuinely thought he was about to start crying, and I don't know if he was just being like a really good actor, or if he genuinely felt bad. I don't know, or maybe he was genuinely scared. I'm not sure, I'm just saying. I've seen a lot of little red flags, so this is what I'm going to mention, some of those red flags, and so that's why I'm talking about it now. And in all actuality, like I said, if somebody doesn't want to do something, and if they have a bad attitude about doing something, then they shouldn't do it. Now, I had gone into this doctor's office like maybe not even a year ago, and when I went in there to have another operation done around my eyes. I think it was like filler, or I don't know, Botox, but I didn't end up getting that procedure done at all for the similar reason, because when I went in there that time, the physician that was going to do the Botox around my eyes, he actually applied alcohol, like rubbing alcohol onto a pad, and then attempted to wipe my eye makeup off with pure alcohol. And I felt like similarly to being waterboarded, but with alcohol, and instead of in my whole face, it was just in my eyes. And so I immediately was like, okay, stop. I changed my mind, because I didn't get the vibe that it was right, and I didn't want to end up getting botched. So I decided to leave, and I felt highly discriminated against at that time when I was there. So, and then similarly to that, this past week, so I'm sitting in the doctor's office this time, and it's very similar situation. He comes back to basically inform me that there's nothing he can do, and he starts to what seems like tear up to me. Anyways, maybe I have just a poor judgment, but it seemed like he was gonna cry, and I asked him, "Are you crying?" And he's like, "No, definitely not crying." And then the nurse said something in regards to how it's probably the new paint. It's too bright and he's sensitive to the light, or something like that. I'm not really sure, but that it was something along those lines. And so but he asked me to get up and to remove my top, and so that he can touch my belly to check it for fat, even though he just told me that there was nothing he can do for me. So I thought it was really, really, really interesting, because it's like, of course I said, no thanks, if there's nothing you can do, then don't touch me, right? And I just think it's really interesting, because it's highly mortifying already as it is. And then to go in there and then to try to reverse the damage that has been done by cancel culture and gang stalking. They need this trauma to stay open, so they have a trigger to hit when they're harassing me. And so one of the reasons why they will wear the same color of the pants that the honey-trapped woman wore, because that's their subliminal way of telling me that I have a flat ass without having to actually say it. And so because they know that this is a trigger, they need this to stay a trigger in order for them to manipulate my mind to feeling traumatized or triggered in the first place. But I mean, like, most of these women in Hollywood don't have a real nice ass. It's all implants. So, and so the reason why these trauma-based mind control psyops are taking place, the reason why it's important for them to create this big trauma, is so that the target will eventually go into a deep state of depression and then just never come outside and never want to leave the house. And eventually, like, when you see a plant that has gone into shock, it withers up. I don't know if you know what a plant looks like when it's been shocked, but most of the time it doesn't make it through the shock. It usually withers up. If you've ever seen a plant go into shock, and then it withers up, and then it just dies. And that's kind of the idea here, with the trauma-based mind control. So, similar to something like this mortifying, it would be like, so let's say if you had a divorce or something like that, something that of that magnitude would set somebody over the edge easily. Emotionally, they'd be distressed, and psychologically, and just everything like that. And that's kind of the basic premise. That's pretty much what they want. That's a goal that they would desire to achieve, hands down. That's one of the ideas. So the main ideas, the main goals. The tracking is done primarily by picking up the target's mobile phone location using cell site simulators, referred to most commonly as a Stingray, via Location's GPS Global Positioning System, as you can see on the screen there. Being used to target individualized attacks. Harassers know where you are. Harassers have access to all of your data and devices. Hackers know it's easy to obtain and exfiltrate information and metadata. Attackers know where you intend to go, and everything else is tracked on the device. People experiencing organized community harassments, otherwise known as gang stalking, often refer to themselves as targeted individuals. The team of community-based agents, or CBAs, taking it in turn to stalk the target whilst doing roleplay or street theater, trying to blend into the environment, their surveillance being done via covert cameras, camera phones, rear view camera, which take imagery of the target as they go about their daily business, which is then transmitted via 5G back to a control center. The community-based agents usually operate in teams. These teams generally consist of 3 to 4 people, sometimes more, sometimes less. And so the first CBA agent is called a flagger agent, agent number 1, and this agent's job is to attract your attention. Agent number 2 is going to be the distractor agent, and this agent's job is to slow you down or stop your progress. And agent number 3 is going to be the CBA agent, and this one is going to be the passive stalker that lets you know that you are being watched. You are being surveilled passively. And then agent number 4, we got the aggressive stalker, and their job is to basically provoke a trauma, provoke a reaction, provoke a response by using a known trigger and create a trauma. All of this being done covertly using plausible deniability. Plausible deniability is the ability to deny any involvement in illegal or unethical activities because there is no clear evidence to prove involvement. The lack of evidence makes the denial credible or plausible. So CBA agent number 1, flagger agent, is supposed to attract your attention, but in a way that is deniable to the public. So number 2, CBA agent number 2's job is the distractor agent, and that job is to slow you down, to try to slow your progress down, and to do this in a way that is deniable to the public. And then the CBA agent number 3 is going to be the passive stalker that lets you know passively that you're being watched, but does it in a way that is deniable to the public. And so agent number 4 is going to be the aggressive stalker. Provoke a reaction or response by using a known trigger, creating a trauma, but do it in a way that is deniable to the public. And they do this by using plausible deniability. Cell site simulator surveillance is used, and cell site simulators trick your phone into thinking they are base stations. And depending on the type of cell site simulator in use, they can collect the following information. 1, identifying information about the device like IMSI number, so that's International Mobile Subscriber Identity Number. And 2, metadata about calls like who you are dialing and duration of call. 3, intercept the content of SMS and voice calls. 4, intercept data usage such as websites viewed. This tracking will be passed onto the surveillance teams, who will have the location plotted on a mapping system on a custom-made surveillance team app. Using this tracking, the surveillance team can efficiently stalk the individual by automatically detecting when they are on the move, getting satellite directions directly to the target, and determining when they are near one of their start locations so they can be at a location before the target gets there to set up an illegal psychological operation, or the PSYOP of gang stalking, otherwise known as organized community harassment. These organizations are often considered to include churches, unions, schools, healthcare agencies, social service groups, fraternities, and clubs. The community-based agency or community-based agent, so that's the CBA, the stalker in and of itself. The term community-based agency means a private, nonprofit organization, including a church or other religious entity that A, is representative of a community or a significant segment of a community, and B, is engaged in meeting human, educational, environmental, or public safety. Community stalking and harassment is domestic terrorism in America. Community stalking, mass stalking, proxy stalking, cause stalking, coordinated stalking, organized stalking, and community harassment, and also electronic harassments and cyber stalking. These are all just some examples of how the domestic terrorism is being operated in our country. Revenge for hire, black market package deals, hunting and tracking rogue radio signals. So that's what I wanted to go over as well. So the hunting and tracking of rogue radio signals that are exfiltrating data, we're going to go over that a little bit more in just a second. Using drones and hackers, mercenaries can and may even threat to implant inappropriate photos onto devices once the device has been hacked and system compromised. Below are just a few more examples that I was able to find online. So just to go over a little bit how this works. So how a Stingray cell phone tracking device works. Law enforcement officials are quietly using gadgets referred to generically as Stingrays to locate cell phones as part of investigative work. Often the device is used in a vehicle along with a computer with mapping software. The Stingray system, which mimics a cell phone tower, gets the target phone to connect to it. Once the cell phone is detected by the Stingray, the phone signal strength is measured. Excuse me. The vehicle can then move to another location and again measure the phone signal strength. By collecting signal strength in several locations, the system can triangulate and map a phone's location. It's more of a form of trilateration, I think, than it is triangulation. I researched this a little bit, and I believe that is what they said online. So we'll go into that a little bit more here. You can see it on the screen right here, how another one of the ways that they are using this is by flying a helicopter or a plane overhead, and then they're utilizing these dirt boxes. So how dirt boxes work. Dirt boxes are military surveillance devices that can capture calls, text messages, and other data from hundreds of cell phones simultaneously. These cell site simulators can be mounted in helicopters or planes, and with this aerial ability can intercept far more data and track mobile users far more efficiently than an on-the-ground Stingray. It is unclear what happens to the collateral intercepted data, but documents suggest some departments use programs to collect and sift through data for future investigations and activities. So basically, that implies that this data is being used to harass and blackmail. Sift through data for future investigations and activities. So that's what I'm saying. That's, yeah. And so I added this photo because I wanted to show more or less how easy it is to exfiltrate metadata and to wiretap somebody's phone. And then, in turn, I do think that this would be the same mechanisms used to track a rogue signal, radio signal. So it is relatively easy, and I do believe it's about $60 for one of those pandas on Amazon. I heard that also during my research. Some of the coping mechanisms forms such as not going outdoors, leaving their phone at home, developing safe space, police referral, moving house, which doesn't seem to work, the harassment often worsens, and or just leaving the country. All right, so the trauma-based mind control to maximize control by creating a trauma bond, connecting etheric implants onto a karmic will that possesses and controls the target, inciting criminal behavior so that the victims can be controlled in the future using their past life traumas, which is kind of the same vibe that I got when I was reading the bit with the helicopters being used to exfiltrate metadata as well. A cycle of trauma intended to stay open in order to occupy the conscience. Acting impulsively, irrational, seeking to soothe the psychological suffering. CBAs may be asked to perform one of the following forms of intercept. 1. Simple path crossing, requiring the target to take evasive action to avoid collision. Multiple CBA performing this several times during a single outing by a target. Arriving at a place known to be a favorite of the target and simply occupying that place just as the target is about to arrive. Restaurants, parks, public facility, seating, even bus seats. Now, typically when this has been done to me, in my experience in the recent past, usually they're waiting there to say something in regards to a photo that I may have just recently taken. And another one of the things that they'll be waiting there getting ready to do is the street theater, which is the directed conversation, and you'll see a little bit later on, we'll get to that. Parking, so to prevent the targets leaving a parking area and then disappearing. Parking commercial vehicles often near target's home with something unusual about these vehicles, such as there is no need for that trade or just unmarked white vans to make the target think the van is there to conduct surveillance. Simple following or leaving a short distance, but every day doing this, both during target commutes and then during other times, making the target very uncomfortable. Passing a side street stop sign, then stopping on an uncomfortable distance into oncoming traffic just as target is about to arrive at the side street, causing the target to have to slam on the brakes. This requires control center assistance and prompting by walkie-talkie style cell phone. Box the target in during a commute, forcing the target to travel at a lower speed. And some cases, the center will supply special license plates to CBA vehicles with short words which have special meanings to the target. The ultimate vehicle interception is the staged accident. This can be dangerous, and it is only assigned to very senior agents. How it is possible to stage an accident? So only the target knows it was staged. This is an excellent means of punishment where its target has committed a serious offense, especially against secret services, by revealing their criminality to the public. Generally, staged accidents are done in jurisdictions where police strongly support the operations, so the CBA driver is protected. License plate bikes or cars with the logo L, acting like they can't speak English. Some of them genuinely do not. Street theater, subtly taking photos or recording the shock reactions for ratings. Celebrity entertainers will then mirror, mimic, and mock everything the target says, wears, does, places they go, things that they eat. So the celebrity entertainers will mirror or mimic and mock the target's trauma. And this equates to the electronic harassment or the shock treatment through the radio and other means. Directed conversation is another form of social engineering attack. When a member of the CBA surveillance team having conversations close to the target about private details of the target's life which they couldn't possibly know unless they had illegal access or inside intelligence or access to intellectual private property and information about the target. Pop culture, notable YouTube videos. The Nightmare World of Gang Stalking. The documentary maker Vice meets up with the victims of gang stalking and those who think it's a delusion. Why Are We Stalking You? To Keep You Out of Jail, a description of an outreach program. A police officer in the video says once they latch onto, they don't let go of their target. The presenter jokes, we roam the streets. We call what we do relentless outreach. It is really stalking, but that is not legal. And I believe that's a TED Talks program on YouTube. They are also running a pay-for-success contract with investors, turning the light on police surveillance, discusses predictive policing, Stingray ALPR, automatic license plate readers, and other technologies. The lack of knowledge and input from the general public on the use of these technologies and the threat to civil rights and liberties also discusses how some communities are empowering themselves and turning the tide on these forms of surveillance. And me forget who did and go. All right, you all, let's get it. I'm gonna have to edit that part out. Movies. The Truman Show. Gang stalking is often likened to being in The Truman Show, the difference being that a targeted individual will experience an interweaving of real and fake people, and the stalking and surveilling is essential for the purpose of government entertainment rather than for criminal surveillance.